I don't just talk about other people's stuff, I also make my own. Books in particular. To date, I have 4 books you can check out on Amazon. Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and the short story collection Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Hop on down to the description for Amazon links to all 4 books. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video.
You know, in many ways, news about kaiju-related topics is very much like a kaiju attack itself. You can go a very long time without anything actually happening, and then all of a sudden, it all happens at once, and you're surprised by it, and trying to figure it out as it's going along. In rapid succession, we got a poster for Gamera Rebirth that hinted at Jiger, then we got the figure reveal of Jiger, and now we've got the full trailer. Not the teaser that we got earlier, but a full-blown trailer for the series. Most of the footage of which looks like it probably comes from the first episode, maybe the first and second. Either way, though, it's our first real look at what the series is going to be like, so how does it look? First of all, we get a bit of a hint at Jiger's origin, where it looks like Jiger at the very least escapes from a lab. Whether or not this version of Jiger was made in a lab or just being held and studied in a lab and escaped, we don't really know at this point. But we do know that Jiger appears to have escaped from here. And of course, it's because the people that were researching slash making slash whatevering Jiger didn't know what they were dealing with per se. And the atmosphere of this opening scene does feel good. It feels like an appropriate kind of strange sci-fi horror setting. Maybe a familiar one, but all the same a very well done one. Raises a lot of questions like what the heck is this thing? What are the circumstances surrounding Jiger's origin? So it's got me intrigued. I will be perfectly honest, I am not a big fan of the human designs. I mean, look at that guy. Just look at him. Does that really strike you as a good design? Like, again, we're dealing with this weird CG animation that we've seen in other Netflix-related anime, not necessarily ones like Castlevania, but the ones like, what is it, Arjun, and Knights of Sidonia, and the Polygon trilogy, of course. Something I'm half tempted to start calling balloonimation, because when it's done poorly, that's what it feels like. It feels like the subjects are helium-filled balloons that are being controlled like reverse marionettes with tethers trying to pull them down rather than strings trying to pull them up. I don't see as much of that in here per se, but I do see hints of it, especially with the human characters. Something about the way they move, because again, like, it has to do with how anime in general has a lower frame rate than American animation does. I don't remember the exact number, but they move at a slightly lower rate, which is why anime in general tends to look a bit stiffer than American animation. Not that it's bad, mind you, I'm just saying that it's rare to see especially fluid animation in anime. You're more likely to see it be a bit slower. But it's one thing when you're applying that style to 2D, because it kind of looks okay. It's almost like they're taking the original manga panel and applying motion to it. And so long as it remains two-dimensional, your brain kind of fills in the gaps and you can get used to it. When it's applied to 3D models, it doesn't look as well. It feels unnatural. But I only see that really applied to the human characters. Again, this design isn't really that good. These designs look a little better, but still not really grabbing me. I mean, I appreciate the bright colors, but the art style for the humans is not really striking me as the best possible kind of design they could have gone with. Granted, I mean, there are all sorts of different designs in anime. I know there's a standard that people usually think of, but like, I don't know, this just feels off somehow. It's almost like I can't reconcile the 2D and 3D portions, and it's not meshing together, so it makes them look unnatural, which is unfortunate. And the fact of the matter is, we're probably going to be spending most of our time with the human characters. And if I'm not liking the art style, that could very well be a problem. Because, this is a visual medium, and if the visuals aren't appealing, well, it's kind of failing in the visual department. Then again, they're not the only characters we have to deal with, are they? We also have the monsters, of course. And the monsters actually look pretty good. The lighting here doesn't necessarily show off Jiger's bright purple that we saw in the figure. Then again, it's possible the figure was intentionally made more colorful. But whatever the case, who cares about the colors? The real thing we're looking for here is motion, personality. Whether or not these monsters, which, let's be honest, they're the ones we're coming to see anyway, whether or not they're going to be an interesting part of the series. It is a kaiju series, after all. If the kaiju don't work in a kaiju series, well, we've all seen the Polygon trilogy. We all saw the latter half of Godzilla Singular Point, where Godzilla spent most of his time just sort of not doing a whole lot compared to the others. But here, I mean, they actually feel alive, so there's that. They're actually moving around. They feel like they're aware of their surroundings. We can't discern a whole lot from the quick clips that go by just in the trailer, but they feel more interesting than the Polygon Godzilla ever did. I still remember when the first trailer for Godzilla Planet of the Monsters dropped, and there was so little monster action in it that people analyzing the trailer were actually trying to force themselves into seeing monsters. It's like they couldn't believe there were no monsters in a trailer for Planet of the Monsters, so they had to somehow fill in the gaps with their minds and convince themselves that there were. They're firing into the sky, and as we see the bullets going up, there's this cloud formation. That must be Hedorah. It can't just be a cloud formation, or maybe it's Biollante, or it's gotta be something, because there's no possible way that this movie doesn't have monsters in it, right? Only it turned out there weren't any real monsters in it other than a couple of flying Cerebum that showed up and disappeared at random, and Godzilla who barely did anything and wasn't even the primary Godzilla of the whole series. But here, though, there's no mistaking that Gamera and Jiger are front and center, doing stuff, behaving like actual characters as far as we can tell. It's automatically a huge improvement. And it looks like they're taking full advantage of the whole animation medium with shots like this. I mean, let's be honest here. While Gamera has been known to do some pretty spectacular things as far as Suitmation Kaiju go, there are some things that when he did them just looked kind of awkward. Or there were things he couldn't have done because of the limitations of the suit. But here, like, the Suitmation Gamera, because you cannot change the human body and you have to work around those limitations, the original Gamera could probably never lift a monster over his head like that and have it look good. But with animation, that can be achieved. I am not knocking Suitmation, just to be clear. I love the Suitmation style. I do want to see it come back one day because CGI, again, I'm starting to ramble. Point is, this is how you take advantage of animation when dealing with something like kaiju. You don't just have them stand around and say, okay, we're going to make them really big, bigger than they could possibly be in the movies, and then just proceed to do jack all with them from that point onward. No, you have them do stuff that they could not do if they were suits, or that you'd have to cut to CGI if they were suits and run the risk of it not lining up. Visually, I mean. Here, I mean, I haven't seen a full fight yet. Nobody has, unless they've been working on the show proper. But this gives me hope. Maybe The problems with the Polygon trilogy really weren't all Seshida's fault. I do still have that one quote going through his head, which has me a little bit worried, but I look at a trailer like this and I think maybe the crew can redeem themselves after all. There's also this brief shot where we have the one kid staring up at Gamera and saying his name, or at least the audio says his name. The character's not moving his lips in the shot, so it's possible that they just synced it up, but the way the line is delivered still implies recognition on the character's part. That suggests that in this universe, Gamera has appeared before, which means Rebirth could very well be a sequel of some sort. Now, what is it a sequel to? I don't think it's necessarily a sequel to the Showa series. It could be a sequel to the Heisei series. I know that a lot of people have really wanted to see the Heisei series continue somehow, and there are various hints suggesting that could be the case. For all we know, it could be a sequel to Gamera the Brave. Gamera the Brave did set itself up to have sequels, but it never did because it didn't do as well as hoped for. Or it's possible that they're going to be setting up a completely different past that's specific to this series and has nothing to do with the previous films. But only time will tell. Ultimately, a trailer can have one of three effects on the person watching it. It can get them really interested in seeing the subject, it can make them think it's going to be an absolute dumpster fire, or it can just be seen and completely forgotten as soon as it's done. Well, I'm not forgetting this anytime soon, and I'm not getting dumpster fire vibes from it. I think this could be good. I hope it is. I really do want it to be. I'm seeing no real warning signs other than those really bad human designs. I just cannot get past those. But we're not really here for the humans, are we? It's called Gamera Rebirth, not random characters you've never seen before who happen to be looking at Gamera Rebirth. So, Gamera is the one that needs to deliver. And of course the other monsters he faces. And it looks like they just might. So, fingers crossed. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.
Congratulations, you reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to consider supporting us on Patreon. Of course, the other way to support us is to go to Amazon and check out our books, Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Also check the description for links to DeviantArt and other platforms we operate. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.